Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled The Divided Nation of Yisra'el, Part 4. Yahushua Messiah, the Great Unifier and the Executor of the Covenant of Restoration. The podcast objectives are restate the difficulty in achieving unity in these last days, analyze how Yahushua Messiah is unifying our nation, reveal the guidelines for the covenant of restoration, and reveal the order of events for next week. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcasts or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us, for these are troubling times and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. Amidst all the noise and the chaos. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome back to our Word from a Watchman series. Recently, in this series, we analyzed how Yahuwah is achieving unity whilst our nation is experiencing multiple levels of division. Not only this, but we harden the fact that Yahuwah is in the business of division. And why? Therefore, if you have not listened to The Divided Nation of Yisra'el, Part 3, which was posted last Friday, September 12th, 2025, please listen to that podcast before you listen to this one. Believe me, you will struggle to follow this lesson without the knowledge we shared in that podcast. Moreover, the lesson from last Friday was a turning point in this series on the divided nation of Yisra'el. Along these lines, we analyzed how easy it is to be on the wrong side of division. This is crucial, for those who persist on the wrong side of division will become instruments of Satan, for they are dividing when Yahuwah says unify, and they are unifying when Yahuwah says divide. And it's all because they are not being led by his spirit, for they are infected with ignorance, a deadly degree of lawlessness, which causes men to disregard the truth, which causes them to err from the truth, which leads them to deny the truth. Now, this speaks to another key matter we analyzed last Friday, to wit, Yahuwah must divide our nation before it can be unified. Here is why. The majority within our nation cannot be unified because they are unwilling to submit to the rule of Elohim. Now, that was the inflection. Here is the problem. Vis-a-vis, there can be no unity where even one man opposes the rule of Elohim. Therefore, Yahuwah must purge our nation of all the rebels, i.e., those who oppose his rule. Only then can we be unified. No doubt, this purging is being led by Yahushua Messiah, i.e., the great divider. For look, listen, it has been written, his winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat into the storehouse. But the chaff he shall burn with unquenchable fire. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, Yahushua Messiah is purging our nation even now. And because the majority are being purged, the great divide has been filled with chaos, confusion, violence, and delusion. And it has become a very tumultuous time. Here lies the inflection, vis-a-vis achieving unity during a season of complex division is a challenge of epic proportion. And thus, we ended the most recent lesson asking the question, how do we, the renewed nation of Israel, achieve unity amidst all the noise and the chaos associated with the Great Divide? That, my friends, is the question. And today, we begin to uncover the answer. Let's get started. The perfect man for the job. Now, in beginning to understand how we, the chosen elect, can achieve unity amidst all the noise and chaos in our nation and the world, we must look to Yahushua Messiah, for he is the great unifier, even though he is also the great divider. Now, we will, no doubt, solve this paradox throughout this series. And yet, as it pertains to Yahushua's role as the great unifier, the following treasure box will lay a foundation for everything you need to know. Yahushua Messiah is unifying the renewed nation of Israel in spirit and in truth, i.e., the primary attributes of his spiritual standard. Isaiah 49:6 is revealing, and he, Yahuwah says, shall it be a small matter for you to be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to bring back the preserved ones of Yisra'el? And I shall give you as a light to the nations, to be my deliverance to the ends of the earth. Isaiah 42:6. I, Yahuwah, have called you in righteousness, and I strengthen your hand and guard you, and give you for a covenant to a people, for a light to the nations. Now, I would like to address 3 takeaways from these passages. First, Isaiah reveals that Yahuwah called Yahushua Messiah to raise up the tribes of Jacob. And by the wisdom of Elohim, I will declare to you what this means. Per the original text, to raise up implies that Yahushua is establishing the tribes of Jacob and the spirit of unity. This is in line with Ezekiel's vision of the valley of dry bones, which is recorded in Ezekiel 37:1-14. Of particular interest, Ezekiel prophesies that the bones, which represent the preserved ones of Israel, would be unified in the Ruach of Elohim. And By the unity of his Ruach, we are empowered to stand and to be fixed in our rightful place by our adherence to the covenant. Now, that said, the question of the hour is simply this: what covenant are we, the renewed nation of Israel, to adhere to? The answer is sure, vis-a-vis the covenant of restoration, which is established upon the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah. And if you listened to the podcast from 2 days ago, you already know this. Ergo, if you haven't listened to End Times 507, The Spiritual Disease of Ignorance, Part 7, I encourage you to do so now. For these lessons build off of each other. And if you miss even one, I am telling you, you will get lost in knowledge. Remember, the entire message is line upon line and precept upon precept. Ergo, if you miss a line or precept, you will never perceive the next line or precept. You, my friend, will be lost in knowledge. And believe me, this is no time to be lost in knowledge. For time is of the essence, my friends, always of the essence. And so take my advice and follow the order of these lessons and don't get out of line. Now, back to the truth at hand. Yahushua Messiah, by raising up the tribes of Jacob, is using his spiritual standard to authenticate everyone who is doing the desire of Elohim in the earth. Here is why. If you fail to do the desire of Elohim, you are not qualified to guard the covenant of restoration. And this is why Yahushua Messiah is the perfect man for the job. To wit, the job of determining who is doing the desire of Elohim. For look, listen, it has been written, the Father has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. Therefore, it is the desire of Elohim that his covenant with the renewed nation of Israel be established upon the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah. And all who follow his standard are being unified by the covenant of restoration authorized by Elohim. The covenant of restoration. Now, point number 2, Yahuwah Elohim is declaring that Yahushua Messiah would be a light to the nations and his deliverance to the ends of the earth. No doubt, this is a critical matter, which I will work to uncover using 2 primary explications. First and foremost, Yahushua Messiah was given to be a light to all nations. And per the text, light is interpreted as the manifestation of truth to be understood by those who adhere to the covenant. This is why Yahushua Messiah referred to himself as the truth and the light of the world. Now, this revelation is crucial in these last days, explicitly as it pertains to our recent lessons on ignorance, vis-a-vis by infecting you with the spiritual viruses of disregard, error, and denial. Ignorance puts you on a fast track to spiritual blindness. Here lies the problem, to wit, the biggest problem, vis-a-vis those who are spiritually blind cannot see Yahushua Messiah, for he is the light. And thus, the following is true, and we have seen it. The ignorant men and women within the dying nation of Israel are disregarding Yahushua Messiah, which is why they are in error concerning his divine nature and purpose, which is why they are in denial concerning his spiritual standard. Remember, when Yahuwah said he would give Yahushua Messiah as a light to all nations, the text reveal that Yahushua would be manifested as the truth, but only to those who ascend to the plane of knowledge and understanding as they are led by the set apart Spirit. For look, listen, it has been written, for as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, these are sons of Elohim. Look again, my friend, and listen. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father also does seek such to worship him. Now, we know we are operating in spirit and truth because we are reigning over the spiritual disease of ignorance. For as we regard Yahushua Messiah in spirit and in truth, we don't walk in darkness. Quite the contrary, we are walking in the light, for we are children of the light. Ergo, we are not in error concerning the divine nature or purpose of Yahushua Messiah. Likewise, we are not in denial concerning his spiritual standard, for we know his standard is the primary requirement upon the covenant of restoration. That's the key, my friends, and a powerful revelation that speaks to why the majority within this nation will never experience the restoration of the nation of Israel. Here is why. The dying nation of Israel is ignorant to the fact that restoration is established upon a covenant. It is not an automated spiritual process for physical descendants of Jacob. This is insanity. Now, this will be clearer to see by considering the second explication, which I will unveil after posing the following question. Why did Yahuwah specifically raise up Yahushua Messiah to be his deliverance to the ends of the earth? The answer is sure, and I will offer it as our next interpretation. The tribes of Jacob were scattered to the ends of the earth. Ergo, the light of Yahushua Messiah would have to reach the whole earth. This is crucial because the preserved ones are of the dispersion, and yet they constitute a spiritual seed. We know this because the truth resulted in a spiritual covenant, which requires a spiritual seed. Ergo, the preserved ones are the renewed nation of Israel, men and women who understand Yahushua Messiah to be the light of the world. Now, to understand these matters, you will need to analyze the original text. But even more so, you must be led by the set apart Spirit. For where there is no Spirit, there can be no truth. My dear friends, you must believe me. 100 men in this nation will read the same scriptures I just read to you, and they will arrive at 100 different interpretations. Here again, this is insanity and a reflection of the division within this nation being authored by the enemy. As for Yahushua Messiah, he is the great unifier, and yet he's not unifying everyone. As Yahuwah commanded, Yahushua Messiah is establishing a covenant of restoration with those who will submit to the rule of Elohim by adhering to his spiritual standard. And once again, for your reference, his spiritual standard includes the 16 degrees of perfection you see in the image to the left. And believe me, you will struggle immensely to submit to the rule of Elohim if you are not operating in these 16 primary degrees. A foundation for understanding the mystery of godliness. Now, as you can clearly see, we covered the first 2 points, but we didn't get to point number 3. And we, my friends, are out of time. Ergo, the Ruach of Elohim is leading me to call an audible for next week. Along these lines, we will suspend our exposition of lawlessness next week, and we will accelerate our analysis of the divided nation of Yisra'el. To wit, all 3 podcasts next week will be a continuation of my Word from a Watchman series. Now, this should tell you how crucial this matter is, vis-a-vis the only thing as important as our victory over lawlessness is the revelation of Yahushua Messiah, which we are beginning to touch on as we progress our analysis of the divided nation of Yisrael. For that reason, I have an assignment for you, and this is one I strongly encourage you to complete. Vis-a-vis, go back into the archives and listen to End Times 482, an Intro to Worship, Part 3, which was posted on June 9th, 2025. Now, amongst other things, this podcast is crucial because it lays a foundation for understanding the mystery of godliness and the revelation of Yahushua Messiah. Here is why this is so important. It is impossible to be led into all truth if the information you are working with is contrary to the revelation of Yahushua Messiah. You will see why if you listen to this podcast. Not only this, but you will also take the first step in establishing a firm foundation of truth so that you can receive great revelation from the Ruach of Elohim. And if you recall, this is the prime objective of my Watchmen series. And trust me, we are just getting started. So look lively, for this nation is filled with false doctrine, and thus we have a long way to go. Now, here is the final word. Behold, a noise and bones rattling. Can you hear it? Yahushua is raising up the nation in truth and in spirit. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, our nation has been heading for a crucial point of inflection for many years. We saw it coming more than a decade ago, and now it is here. To wit, our nation is going through the closing phase, the final chapter of the Great Divide. And the greatest controversy is surrounding Yahushua Messiah, and we must pick a side. Before you do, let me warn you, there will be no turning back, for every decision made now is permanent, and every foot is fastened to the track. Heretofore, I recommend, be wary of deception, for many thought they had found a path to avoid this controversy when there was no middle ground. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson, and if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Divided Nation of Israel, Part 4. And the next podcast is entitled, The Divided Nation of Israel, Part 5. I will post this podcast on Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.